According to a recent interview with director Denis Villeneuve, Dune Messiah, aka Dune 3, will feature lots of action. When thinking about what a big screen adaptation of Dune Messiah might look like, some fans are either concerned or at least wondering about how different it will feel from Dune Parts 1 and 2, which were both pretty action-heavy. You had the gladiator scenes with Feyd-Rautha, you had the Fremen attacks on the Harkonnens, and the very climactic ending with the Battle of Arrakeen with the sandworms, just absolutely decimating the Sardaukar legions. So very action-oriented, and I think Denis Villeneuve actually called Dune Part 2 a war epic. I would say that that's accurate. Dune Part 1 mostly had those very kind of intimate encounters. I think it had nicely paced action once they got to Arrakis. The spice harvester scene, that was pretty epic there, but also then when the palace was attacked, and then these sort of small skirmishes, and then Duncan's last stand, awesome. And then the end with the duel between Paul and Jameis. I think Dune Part 2 had more action, I guess, overall, and definitely more large-scale battles. In Dune Part 1, mostly its biggest battle was the attack on the Arrakeen Palace. But when it comes to Dune Messiah, it's a question that's been on a lot of people's minds because Dune Messiah is very light on the action on that scale. It's very much political intrigue and scheming and one big action set piece at the end. But then when you compare that to the previous film entries, you kind of wonder, is Villeneuve going to want to try to incorporate more action than the source material has? Well, we know that there's probably going to be a time jump. So are we going to see some sort of sequences detailing Muad'Dib's jihad as the Fremen legions rage across the universe? Are we going to see any of that? I could see that happening. We saw it sort of teased in Dune Part 1 in those prescient visions. Got a little taste of that. That could be one way to incorporate more action. But also, one of the legendary CEOs that when Dune Part 2 premiered and they were talking about the prospect of a third film in Dune Messiah because Villeneuve has talked about it numerous times, he said that we're seeing how things work out now with the release of this film, but definitely so far with the positive release or box office response, if Denis Villeneuve can promise a similar experience on par or exceeding what we've just gotten, then yes, no brainer. So is that the expectation then? That it has to at least equal to the action, the war epic action of Dune Part 2? Because I'm not sure how he would do that. Even if he were to incorporate those extra scenes showcasing Muad'Dib's jihad, I still don't know if that would be enough. You would have to rely a lot on incredible writing and dialogue, and as Denis Villeneuve has stated, he relies way more on imagery to convey things, not so much dialogue. But it's interesting that you're adapting a literary source material with incredible writing and dialogue. It's definitely way more of those intimate confrontations. And we'll get into that also with Villeneuve's comments. And I kind of want to break down Frank Herbert's style when it comes to incorporating action, what he prioritizes, because I think it will factor in, possibly. So this is an article from MovieWeb. During the interview, Denis Villeneuve teased what audiences can expect from Dune Part 3. While he didn't give away any concrete plot details, the director revealed that the threequel will feature a lot of action. The pair discussed Frank Herbert's approach to battle scenes, which were usually written in the past tense, with two characters describing the battle rather than depicting it. Villeneuve promises that Dune Part 3 won't feature the same technique, and it's his job as the writer and director to bring those battles to life. He explained, and this is his quote, "If you go back to the first novel, Dune, very often you have two characters coming inside a room and saying, 'Wow, that was a battle.' There's a lot of people coming out of action and referring to it. All the Dune books are written like that. The idea as a screenwriter is to go into those descriptions and dig into them and bring them up to the surface, because there's a lot of rich material there." This possibly does indicate that he will incorporate those scenes. Maybe we'll see flashbacks to indicate to the audience this passage of time, because we definitely will have a time jump. He has confirmed that Anya Taylor-Joy will be back to play Alia Atreides, Paul's sister, who hadn't even been born yet at the end of Dune Part 2. But maybe having some sort of flashback sequence of events to indicate what has happened during that time. And definitely the jihad is a huge event, completely alters the landscape of the universe because everything is now under Paul's control. The imperial seat is on Arrakis and he controls the spice. Maybe he would be narrating at this time, showing what happened in the past and kind of indicating what the future might hold, setting the stage in that light. I think it could be done well. You don't have to explain too much, just enough to anchor the audience into the current setting, what happened. At the end of Dune Part 2, you know that this war happens. The Holy War begins. That's what Lady Jessica says. The obvious part would be Princess Irulan narrating and recapping everything. Or it could be Aaliyah if they're going to do something different, because she did narrate Dune Part 2. So I wonder if he's going to have Irulan do it again. Kind of in a similar fashion to how she was recapping events in her recorder device. You could still have that taking place. I think that would be cool. It's very much in line with the source material. And also, it just comes down to what kind of action is needed. So Denis comments here, very often you have two characters coming inside of a room and talking about the battle that just took place. Now, when it comes to the Battle of Arrakeen, yes, it is like that. It talks about as they're poised to attack the shield wall and planning everything. And then afterwards, they're going through the rubble and the aftermath of the battle. But there is actually a lot of action that is depicted. It's just not these epic, large-scale battles. In Dune, the smaller, more intimate confrontations are written in a lot of detail. Right off the bat, the sparring session with Paul Atreides and Gurney Halleck, a lot of stuff is happening there. Paul is wondering if he's betraying him because he is really pushing him. He thinks that he's trying to actually kill him. So we have that action. And of course, even before that, Paul had to fight for his life during the Gom Jabbar test, and he had withstood more pain than anyone before him. As the Reverend Mother says that she must have wanted him to fail. So even before that sparring session, Paul was fighting for his life. To me, that was a very tense sequence in the book. And you continue on Yue's betrayal as that's happening. The Spice Harvester sequence, very action heavy, even though it's not a battle, but it's very much an epic scene. And I would describe that as action. But also Duncan's last stand, protecting Paul and Jessica's escape. Awesome scene on a smaller scale. As that was written, though, that was also done very quickly, yes. But then later, the duels. So the duel between Paul and Jamis was very much described in a lot of detail. And again, the same thing with Paul and Feyd-Rautha. So we didn't have this huge battle sequence of the Battle of Arrakeen described in so much detail, but what we did get was this duel that was described and really expounded upon. You got to see inside Feyd-Rautha's head, Paul's head, everything that happened. He took his time on those scenes. So I think that's what mattered most to Frank Herbert. It wasn't just action for the sake of action. He wanted it to mean something. So it had to have some sort of weight to the character's journeys, a very significant part of the journey. And every time that a confrontation like that is described in detail in relation to Paul, it matters to his continued evolution. So when he defeated Jamis, that was a huge stepping stone in his journey. It changed him. So that's why the author really made sure to detail all of the things that are going on in that situation before, during, and after. Same thing with the battle with Feyd-Rautha. It was a big moment for the character, way more than just the Battle of Arrakeen. That's just an event that happened. But when it came to fighting for his life in this duel to the death, that actually meant something to the character's journey, both characters. That's what matters most to Frank Herbert. The action has to mean something to the main plot or the individual character's journey and transformation or evolution. It usually means that something is happening that will change that character or add some emotional weight to their journeys. And that's why in Dune Messiah, there are those moments that are tense. And again, those more intimate confrontations, those smaller scale confrontations that are drama filled because they add emotional weight and significance to what's going to happen next to this character, because it's going to change them moving forward. So when it comes to the character of Hate, there's definitely some action there. There will be some internal conflicts for the character. And again, with Scytale at the very end. Now, we will have one big epic sequence that I think is actually described in enough detail, I think, with the stone burner. I think that would be pretty awesome. I'm excited to see that. I think there definitely could be that balance of large-scale action, which doesn't necessarily have to mean battle scenes, like I said with the spice harvester scene, because I get it too. You want there to be this nice pace, something that feels within a similar spirit to the first two Dune films, so you kind of want to be in keeping with that, but also just appreciate why Frank Herbert wrote the action like he did, and that he really wanted to dive deeper into those smaller scale confrontations, those intense, dramatic moments between two people that really delved into both of their mindsets, leading to an epic change for both characters. I mean, it was great to see the Battle of Arrakeen, and it is in the book. Frank Herbert did say that this event happened. To see that presented on screen, I'm all for. I think I was a bit disappointed, though, with Gurney Halleck and Beast Raban's confrontation. That kind of seemed a bit anticlimactic. It's probably because it wasn't in the book, but the final duel between Feyd-Rautha and Paul Atreides is really good. Very well choreographed, and the gladiator scene as well. So I have hope. I'm not worried that much about the action, but this is probably more towards general audiences that might be concerned. My concern mainly would be whether or not it fits within the story. The Battle of Arrakeen did happen, even though it wasn't described in that detail. We knew what the plan was, and we knew how that was going to take place, and then we see the aftermath. So all of that was in the source material. Enough information was there for Denis Villeneuve to go on. Probably the same will be true if he decides to showcase those scenes with Muad'Dib's jihad. The most disappointing part in Dune Part 2 is no baby Aaliyah. Her confrontation with the Emperor, Mother Superior, the Baron, and doing the knife work after the battle is one of my favorite reads ever. She's awesome at the end. I love it when she's taunting the Emperor and the Reverend Mother. It's so good. Justice for Aaliyah. I hope we get something like that. Denis Villeneuve has to do some work to kind of lay the groundwork for this character, that the huge portion of her story was sidelined. There's definitely going to have to be some changes as far as establishing who she is. Basically a Reverend Mother. He's got a lot of writing challenges ahead. Aaliyah is great on paper, but very tricky to do on screen. And I get it as to why the changes were made, but for Dune Messiah, I just wonder, how are you going to do this? I definitely think you need to have Lady Jessica be there. So that's another thing. Lady Jessica is not in Dune Messiah, but I feel like you need to have her there because we're missing that important part of Aaliyah's story if you don't have Lady Jessica there. So I'd be okay with that. If he can make up some ground of that missing character development between Lady Jessica and Aaliyah, I think that that could be a good window into her nature, what happened to her in the womb. And I think Lady Jessica could be a good way to do that, to establish their very strange relationship and Jessica having to grapple with her decisions. We need to see her confronted by the horror of what happened to Aaliyah. I do wish in Dune Part 2 that the scene was done in a way to establish that this was a choice that Lady Jessica made. It very much was a conscious choice, and she has to live with that. A lot of decisions these characters make speaks to that these aren't traditional black and white, good and evil characters. It's just a lot more nuance to that. And she made the best decision, she thought, for their current situation. A lot of complex layers to these characters that hopefully can be conveyed in Dune Messiah. Another option that might be the best way to catch us up on where Aaliyah is and what her situation is with Lady Jessica would be to have her handle the opening narration. In this, we can get glimpses with some action sequences of what she saw during the jihad, and maybe even from her perspective of what happened with her mother and how she was viewed by the Fremen as a freak in her upbringing on Arrakis. Whatever may be the case, most Dune fans feel that Villeneuve certainly has his work cut out for him with this third film, and I certainly hope that he takes his time to get it right and make something that can feature a decent amount of the action and tension-filled sequences in a way that also faithfully captures the spirit of Herbert's messages and themes within Dune Messiah. But I'm curious to know what you think of Villeneuve's plans to include more action in his third Dune film. Would you like to see glimpses of the jihad and perhaps an opening narration by any particular character? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Dune and other sci-fi and fantasy news and lore. And if you're looking for other ways to show your appreciation, you can check out my Patreon page, where members get access to exclusive content and perks. Thank you all so much for your support, and as always, have a very nerdy day.